Most of us have been stamped with the belief system that we are constantly aging, that we are constantly dying. People have been programmed by science to believe that with every breath that you take, you're getting closer to your inevitable death. The science programs and the mainstream media and the mainstream schooling system has basically taught you that life is pretty much just, once you're born, you die. The clock starts ticking and you're getting closer to your death. So it's just amazing to me how little hope there is. It's amazing to me how much we've given in to the beast system. And a lot of it has to do with the school system, ladies and gentlemen. The school system keeps you at a very low bandwidth of consciousness. A very low bandwidth of consciousness. And they take your young mind that is tapped into the magic of reality. Most of you, if you go back, if you remember, most of you probably had very magical childhoods. My childhood was riddled with optimism. I was always amazed at the beauty of nature. Even the smells really got to me when I was young. There are certain smells that if I smell them now, completely take me back to my childhood and just encumber me with beautiful nostalgia. But they take your mind at a very young age and they warp its trajectory of growth. And they put you down into this bandwidth of consciousness where you're told that if you don't listen to us, if you don't do your homework, if you don't get everything done in time, you might not make it to college. And if you don't make it to college, you're never going to amount to anything. And you might become homeless and you're not going to have money. And they just fill you full of fear. They fill you full of this toxic bullshit. And unless you have a keen mind and unless you can realize that you're being duped, you will carry the subconscious programs and the engrams that have been installed into your consciousness from youth into your adulthood all the way until your potential death. I say potential because I do believe death is a sickness. I think aging is a sickness, and I think all of these things can be conquered. And if I'm wrong, which I don't believe I am, then so be it. I'd rather be an optimist and put my time into being an optimist and having faith that there's more than just believing that, oh, I'm dying. Every breath I'm taking, I'm getting closer to my death. Oh my God, I'm going to have to work my whole life so that I can retire and have some free time before I die. This whole system is toxic. Now, in this system, there's a lot of beauty as well. But unfortunately, most people have also bought into the whole idea that nothing good comes easy and that everything in life that's good, you have to put in tons of struggle. They've just polluted the collective consciousness with cancerous thoughts and cancerous beliefs that have become some subconscious impressions and engrams on most people. I mean, how can we say that we can't live past 200 when we don't even experience over 5% of our brain's power? And that's just the brain. What about the liver? What about the heart? What about the thymus, the thyroid? When this body is awakened and illuminated through Kundalini Christ consciousness, anything is possible because you are finally, for once, able to experience reality the way you are designed to experience reality. In a state of enlightenment. Now, in a state of enlightenment, negativity, the thought of death, is absolutely laughable. In a state of Kundalini Christ consciousness, those chakras in your cerebral spinal system are reanimating your body with life and constantly regenerating the cells in your body. And the chakras, ladies and gentlemen, are very real things. These are not just hocus pocus, hippity dippity, flippity flop things that were created or people that just came up with these things when they were on acid in the 60s. No, these are part of our physiological, biological makeup. When the chakras truly awaken in the geometric patterns that unfold out of them tether you to the various dimensions, you are now effectively siphoning in life force from the various dimensions. You are actually tapped into the angelic kingdoms, and those angels pump you full of life. This body can actually this body and this mind can siphon in energy that completely reanimates the physical body's ability to produce its own life force. I hope that makes sense. So basically what I'm saying is that these in layman's terms, these chakras are battery chargers for the body, which is the battery. I hope that makes sense. So right now, here in this dimension, you get thrown into the underworld. You get programmed by the school system. You get not even going to get into that. But basically, you're told at a very young age that your battery has only so much charge on it, and that eventually your charge is going to run out and you're going to die and you're going to meet your creator and all this other nonsense, as if you can't meet your creator now, which is what Kundalini allows you to do, but that's besides the point. You're told, and you create this into an engram, because when you're told at a young age that you're going to die, it's a very traumatic experience. It's a subjective thought and subjective thinking. If you read Christian D. Larson's book, Your Forces and How to Use Them, he says that subjective thinking is thinking that's imbued with emotion. And whenever you experience a traumatic experience, you are experiencing subjective thinking and subjective feeling, because it's all emotion. Trauma is very, very detrimental because it creates engrams, which are basically little trauma stamps within the mind's various levels. And these need to be removed. That's besides the point. But where was I going with that? You're told, ladies and gentlemen, that your battery has a charge on it, and that every breath you take, your battery is losing its charge. But if you exercise enough, and if you eat your cereals, and if you take your Flintstones vitamins and all your other shit, you might be able to, live a somewhat healthy life and reach 80, but it's not common, and all this other nonsense. This is all trauma based, especially when you're young. And most people, when they think of death, even when they get older, it's all based on trauma. No one wants to die. And that should say a lot right there. The fact that no one actually, well, not everybody, but the majority of the people in this world don't actually want to die. And that's, in my opinion, a byproduct of the fact that aging, we know deep down, whether we acknowledge it or not, some of us do, most of us don't. We know that aging, at least this is my opinion, I believe that aging is a sickness. It's a disease. We weren't designed to age. This body is made in the image of our Creator. We, human beings, are one with our Creator. Now, when the Creator creates things, it doesn't separate itself from its creation. We are what we've been looking for. Us and God are one and the same. This human biological makeup and the consciousness is divine. We are demigods, ladies and gentlemen, but we've been turned into shit-eater bottom feeders. And because the system knows that subconscious beliefs create reality, they know that if they fill you with the idea that you're, with every breath that you're aging, that if you believe that, you actually create that reality through the law of attraction. We are creating and accelerating our own premature death through food, through belief, through a lot of different things, ladies and gentlemen, but that's besides the point. We are told that our battery has a charge on it, and that charge is eventually going to wear out. And when that happens, you die. And that's just how life is. And they solidify this into your mind through books, through movies, through philosophy. It's everywhere. I'm here to tell you that based on my experiences, and many people have had similar experiences, I'm not the only one in any way, shape, or form. I'm here to tell you that based on my experiences, we have energy centers within our system known as chakras. And these chakras can actually, if they're truly awakened, reanimate the body and the mind with youth. And it charges our battery. Now imagine what it would be like if these chakras were always awakened. Now the only way to actually truly awaken these chakras is through a process known as Kundalini. Kundalini, in my opinion, is the key to longevity because Kundalini is basically the name of the biological process that awakens these chakras. Kundalini is just a term that we use to define a process of enlightenment. Now, to enlighten an organism, it has to be operating at its full potential. That's what enlightenment is. When an organism is expressing its full potential. Now, we exist in a world where we experience about 5% of our potential, and we still can live up to 100 years. Now, imagine what we could do with the 95% left if it was actually being used. If we were using 100% of our potential, imagine what we could do in a state of perfection, and that's what enlightenment is. But the system wants to beat you over your head and say that, oh, perfection is something that you can strive for, but it can never be attained. Perfection is something that can be strived for, but it can never be attained. They want you to think that it's okay to be broken. They want you to find beauty in being suboptimal. They want you to find beauty in mediocrity. It's insane. We were designed in the image of our Creator, ladies and gentlemen. In a state of enlightenment as well, we can communicate and see the various hidden aspects of nature. We can realize that we live in an omni field of energy and that we can constantly reanimate the protoplasmic body and the cells with energy. Now, effectively, if we could keep the cells from atrophying and losing their energy, and we can constantly supply a source of energy for the physical body, in my opinion, that this body doesn't have to ever die. And I know that that may contradict a lot of what people have been taught, but I mean, what has what we've been taught done for the human species other than make us nervous and sick and depleted? I've said it once and I'll say it again, folks. In 1976, the U.S. Public Health Department said that only 1.5% of all Americans were actually healthy. Again, in 1976, the U.S. Public Health Department said that only 1.5% of all Americans were actually healthy. I don't know if you guys heard that. It was me cracking my fingers. And that was in the 70s. You can lift that quote from Dr. John W. Apsley II's book, The Genesis Effect, Spearheading Regeneration with Wild Blue-Green Algae. I'll say that one more time for those who are interested. You can lift that quote that in 1976, only 1.5% of all Americans were deemed healthy by the U.S. Public Health Department. You can find that quote in Dr. John W. Apsley II's book, The Genesis Effect, Spearheading Regeneration with Wild Blue-Green Algae, an amazing book on the health benefits of Aphanosomnon flossaqua blue-green algae from Klamath Lake, Oregon, a freshwater algae that has massive amounts of protein and bioavailable amino acids that is so similar to the human being mineral matrix that when you consume this stuff, it basically transfers right into your biological or your physiology through a process known as the humanizing factor, which is where the whole you are what you eat quote comes from. That there is truth to that. You are indeed what you eat, and what you eat dictates how your body regenerates itself and rebuilds itself. And that's largely undertaken, physiologically speaking, from a process known as the humanizing factor. And the humanizing factor, in layman's terms, is when your body breaks down foods and weaves it into its own protoplasmic makeup and regulates metabolic functions with foods and whatnot. I hope that makes sense.